Alright, we're going to continue with the adding the texture with the Payne's Gray and the white. You can see up here where we got the skull a little brighter, you can see more of a difference on the shading. So just keep on working in the shadows with this Payne's Gray and white mixture. Kind of go where the dark is and get that a little bit saturated. Start putting in the texture in the upper jawbone area. The skin that's kind of over the mouth is kind of, you can kind of see it pulling at the rest of the bone area. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit more Payne's Gray and mix into our mixture until we get basically 100% Payne's Gray. Now Payne's Gray is actually a really dark gray. So we'll be able to get pretty dark with just using the gray. I go into where it's real dark in here and just kind of see where I'm at color-wise. So I know if I want to put gray in what area. Once you get it to where it's pretty pretty dark, like the other shirt we did, you don't want to go over the whole entire skull. You just want to start hitting certain areas. So as you can see in here, we're okay to chisel out the nose. Now what we don't want to do is start adding a whole bunch of texture to the skull again, because we already did all that with that last stage. Now what we want to do is just define all the shapes and start getting the shapes to be the correct shapes. Kind of clean up the skull a little bit. Parts that need to be pushed back, we're going to push those back. Start adding your definition lines. You can see how dark this is actually taking it already. Now compared to black, it's nothing, but for what we want to do in some of these detail areas, it's about as dark as we want to go with some of them. Do a little bit of detail on the teeth, kind of get the teeth to kind of stand out a little bit. These teeth back here we're going to push back. We don't want them to come out too much. Want them to look like they're in the back of that mouth. If you do them too bright, then they'll stand out and they'll compete with the front row of teeth. And you don't want to make it look like he has rows of teeth on the same side of the mouth. So I want to come up here and get the shadow line in here, and then kind of draw a dark line, and then I shade off of that dark line. So that way that line looks like it just is the end of the shadow area. The real sharpness of it. And we're going to come in here and continue some of these lines that were drawn in earlier. Just kind of push that out a little bit. Give the definition to it. Now we are at the end of this one. We're going to come back in with white and re-pop out all these highlights. But that's after we do all the different stages. So as you can see, we're starting to get more definition in here. Starting to draw out the skull a little more. Kind of get some of these shadow lines in here. Get it to go kind of to that dark color on the top edge. Make sure all your lines are kind of faded in nice and soft. Just kind of take the airbrush, take it back about 6 to 8 inches and just kind of fog that in nice. Get that to where it kind of blends real nice and smooth. Don't worry too much about the overspray right now because we're going to come in and we're going to tend to all that in a little bit. As we get darker in our color, closer to black, we'll start getting rid of all that stuff. Now remember to shadow the bone structure to make it look like it's round. And at this point you shouldn't see any of your pencil lines. All your pencil lines, all those lines should all be disappeared by now. Okay, I like the way this color looks. I'm going to go a little bit darker now. So now I'm going to actually go 100% Payne's Gray, which means I'm going to clean out the airbrush, get all that white out of there, and I'm going to go to that Payne's Gray, which is real close to the shadow gray on Spectratex. Wicked has a Payne's Gray. Now I'm using this at full strength. I'm not adding any water into it. This is straight out of the bottle. Now once again I'm going to go in here and see how dark I am, which I'm almost a gunmetal gray. So it's actually pretty dark. You can see how dark that line is right there. So now I realize, okay, I need to be careful where I spray this. I don't want to spray this everywhere, but I just want to spray in all my defining lines to make the cheekbone stand out past the jawbone. See how right now we're just going to start pushing that jawbone back. Watch how the skull will actually look like it comes out and the jaw will actually drop down. So we just push that jawbone right back because this is so bright, and down here we're adding that darkness. It's taking this and bringing this out in front of it. So it's basically playing with the shadows of it. Shadow creates height. Now in here we're going to add just a couple little detail lines. What you can see is I just blended out some of that skull. We don't need it to be so bright on that outside edge. Now in here there's a little indentation. We'll just add it in the deepest spot of that indentation and kind of blend it out a little bit. Don't need to do this color everywhere, just where the dark spots are. It's one of those colors that you could start overdoing. Now see, I'm going to define the teeth by just doing a black line around it. And now I'm going to take it and shadow up off that black line. Now you don't see that black line anymore. It just looks like it shadows off. Okay, so now this line here, I could come down and I could cut this out. And now see, I don't want to shadow onto this part here. I want to shadow onto the tooth because the light's coming from this direction, so this spot's going to actually be bright. Where we're going to shadow is the tooth itself is going to shadow away. So after doing that line, now I'm going to come in here and just kind of blend off that line into the tooth. Now what that just did is push the tooth back and brought this string of skin in front of it. So now I'm going to shadow this tooth onto that tooth, which brings that tooth out in front. Do a little bit of dark in this area here, kind of blend it out. Now this we could actually come down and we're going to shadow onto the piece of material onto this one now. Because we want that string to look like it actually rolls around like a full 360. Going to come in here and draw in this tooth here, which shadow back into the back tooth. We got to kind of push it back a little bit. We don't want it to be brighter than the skin here. We want it to look like it's inside the mouth, not outside the mouth. Now, if you guys like what you're seeing here, you can come see me in Colorado. The Airbrush Jamboree, I'll be teaching there. Hands-on live training to where I can actually go around and smack you in the back of the head. Wish Wiki was going. Alright, now I'm going to add a little bit of detail into these teeth so they don't look so plain. Alright. If you guys can make it, do everything in your power to make it. If you can't make it, tell other people. Maybe they might want to go. It's a tax write-off for businesses. Nope, not going to happen. Alright, so now I'm just adding this, make this piece of material look like it's stuck to the tooth. Kind of growing onto the tooth here. Make sure all your lines have blends coming off of them. You don't want to just do a line. You want to make sure that if you draw a line, there's going to be a little shadow coming off that line. So you want to keep working this. Kind of the dark areas, make sure you put a little bit of texture in that dark area. So we're going to keep on doing this. The shadows on one side, so you can go a little bit thicker, and then the other side you're shadowing onto the teeth area, kind of bringing that highlight area out. So you can see the definition we're starting to get with adding this darker Payne's Gray. Starting to get some of that finished look in here. Now, as you can see on this E-TAC, there's not really much tip dry. I haven't had to go in and really worry about the paint not spraying the way I want it to. Coverage is real good, smooth. We're just going to keep on working the skull, kind of wherever it looks like it might need a little more work, I'll just come in and cut it out a little more. We can change lines on the outside of the skull. With this stage, we can kind of push all this back. See, I just brought this bone out more just by shadowing onto this part of the skull. So shadows are actually real awesome, the way that you can sit there and shape stuff with just where you're putting the shadows. You know, if you could think of a wood carver and that's all you're doing is going in there and kind of carving the shape out where you want it dark, you could kind of go in there and darken it up and push it back. So now basically that's all I'm doing is sculpting the skull. The hard part about spraying with the black is done. The hardest part about spraying on black is getting that white to stand out. Now the rest of this is just kind of going in as if it's the white t-shirt that we did. Just kind of shadowing and adding all your lines and kind of getting the dimension out. Now what's great about this is we can go over the outside of the shirt and we'll be able to come back in with the jet black and cut it all back out. So with the overspray, you don't have to be so careful with that overspray. It's kind of nice, a little more forgiving. Now you're going to see I can cut this back out, bring this back out. You're going to see that bone really pop out now. Because as soon as I shadow both sides of it, that bright white will look like it comes running out. So I'll shadow this side first. Now when I come in here and cut this side out, see the way I draw a line around it first? But then I come back in and I blend that line out on one side. See the way this piece just came sliding right out? So now I'm going to come in here and do this little crack that I have in here. kind of put a shadow on the top side of it because the bottom side is going to collect a little bit of light. So one side is going to be brighter than the other. Going to shadow this in here, get this to kind of come out. Going to go in here and just kind of add little tiny lines. Very soft though. I'm not spraying a sharp line. Kind of come in here and create a little bit of texture. Now remember, this gray is real dark, so we don't want to go 100%. We're still just very softly adding in some texture to it. Yeah, you just want to, I'm just lightly hitting it with this gray. Now this isn't even black, so I wouldn't do that with black. If you do, you got to be real careful. You just want to barely hit it with that gray. If you hit it with black, you want to make it look like it's barely even any black. So yeah, Wiki, you never pay attention. Alright. So then you come in and do these final crack areas. Kind of get a little bit of depth in there. And we want to kind of slightly shadow this nose bone a little bit. Not a whole bunch. Alright. Now I'm going to go in with the probably 50-50 with the carbon black and the Payne's gray. Which already I'm pretty dark, but we can go a little bit darker. And then when we go pure black, I'm just going to do around the outside of the skull. Now here I'm not going to try on the skull. I'm actually going to go where the skull isn't, on the black part of the shirt, to see how dark I am. Now I'm actually almost the same color as the shirt itself. So I'm just going to come in here and just kind of cut out the skull. We're going to do a little bit of shadowing on the skull, but not yet. I'm just going to go in here and cut out the skull. See how I can just sit there and erase all my overspray? Now when you erase your overspray, you want to make sure that you're very tight to your surface, close, and then when you come out to the outside edge of it, you're just going to kind of blow it out in a pattern, because you might end up seeing it a little bit. It might not be the same exact color as the shirt, so you want it to look more like it's a blend, not like you sprayed around the skull. Almost like a shadow or something like that. So now I'm going to come in here and cut out all the detail around the teeth. Now this is on the back side of it. I'm spraying what the black of the t-shirt would be.